Assalamu alaikum and good morning, students. I hope you all are fine and doing well. So, today is our second lecture of our online classes, and in this lecture, we are going to cover quick questions, we are going to cover summary and vocabulary words, and we have different information about the topic. Which we have already read in the previous class. So the topic was about the topic is the unthinkable becomes the unthinkable. It was about the ship, the great ship, the Titanic, which was almost unsinkable, but unfortunately the ship sank. Okay, so we have already read about uh, the Titanic, the great ship, and we have read about the topic the unsinkable becomes the unthinkable. So now we have more information about the Titanic. That in Titanic we have only two bathrooms for over 700 peoples in the third class. It means that the ship's passengers were divided into three separate classes, which was determined by the price of their tickets. So, for the third class people, for the third class compartment, there were only two bathrooms for over 700 people, because in the third class there were 700 peoples. Okay, they look at the second one. There were not enough lifeboats for everyone, and several of the lifeboats were only partially full. Okay, now this was the big mistake, that there were not enough lifeboats for everyone, because there are many peoples and there are several lifeboats which were partially full, so many of the peoples was died at that time. Okay, then we have J.P. Morgan, famous of his railroad wealth, was going to ride the Titanic, but he changed his mind at the last minute. It means that the famous railroad the famous person of the famous person J.P. Morgan, uh, who was famous of his railroad wealth, was going to ride the Titanic at that time, but suddenly he changed his mind at the last minute. Then in the fourth one, we have two small dogs were among the survivors of the wreck. It means that among the survivors, there were two small dogs. Okay, the fifth one is there were two ships nearby that could have helped rescue people from the Titanic, but they did not recognize the Titanic's call for help. Okay, there were two ships near to the Titanic, but they could rescue the people from the Titanic, but they did not recognize the help they call from the Titanics. Okay, the last one is on the day the ship hit the iceberg, there was supposed to be a practice for using the lifeboats, but it was cancelled. Okay, so this event happened. This tragedy happens due to the iceberg. It means that the ship hit the iceberg, therefore it sank. Okay, and it was supposed to be practice for using the lifeboats, but it was cancelled. Okay, so these are the infos about the Titanic. Date, how many bathrooms are there for 700 people in the third class, and the lifeboats are not enough for the people in the ship, and JP Morgan was going to ride the Titanic, but he changed his mind, and there were two small dogs who were the survivors of among the survivors, and there were two ship near the Titanic, but they didn't recognize the Titanic's call or help, and this tragedy happens due to the iceberg. It means that the ship hit the iceberg and it destroyed. Okay, then we have our questions. We have quick questions on page number five, at the top of page number 5. Quick questions. Okay, look at the first one. The first one is name 5 luxury features on board the Titanic. It means that what are the 5 luxury features that were present on the Titanic? Okay, now look at the answer. The Titanic's luxury was almost unthinkable. It has its own newspaper, medical surgery with operating facilities, heated swimming pools, Turkish bath, catering system, and a squash court. It means that the boat was luxurious, and there were many luxury features that were on that. It has its own newspaper, medical surgery, operating facilities, heated swimming pool, Turkish bath, and catering system, and a squash court. Okay, then look at question number 2. Question number 2 is, in which year did the Titanic set sail? Okay, now the answer is that the Titanic set sails from England on 12th April 1912. It means that Titanic was set sailed from England, and the date was 12th of May, and the year was 1912. Okay, look at question number 3. Did the Titanic carry wealthy passengers? Okay. Did the Titanic carry wealthy passengers? Yes, there are many wealthy passengers, but the ship's passengers were divided into 3 separate classes, which were determined by the price of their ticket. Means there were division of peoples into 3 separate classes, and the first class was the wealthy passengers, and they used the different luxuries, means they have their own newspapers, medical surgeries, operating facilities, and swimming pools, heated swimming pools. Okay, question number 4. Because of the way it was made, many people thought that the Titanic was dash. Uh, due to the design, and the luxury of the boat, many people thought that the Titanic was unsinkable. But unfortunately, the Titanic sank due to some mistakes, due to the iceberg, because the ship hits the iceberg and sank. Okay, look at the fifth one. To the nearest 10, how many years has it been since the Titanic sank? Okay, it marks almost 108 years since Titanic sank. But if we look the nearest 10, it means that it marks 110 years since Titanic sank. Okay, look at question number 5. What event caused the Titanic to be damaged? Uh, okay, the cause of the damage of Titanic is that while traveling in the North Atlantic Ocean, the famous ship struck an iceberg which caused the Titanic to be damaged. It means that the cause of the damage of Titanic was the iceberg, means the ship struck an iceberg which caused the Titanic to be damaged. Okay, then we have our question number 7. How long did it take for the Titanic to sink? It took just 2.5 hours for the Titanic to sink. This was the answer of question number 7. So we have 7 question. We have almost 10 question, but I have solved 7 question for you, and the next 3 were your homeworks. Is your homework? They are your homework. So you have to do the the 3 questions by your own. Means the 8th, 9th, and 10th. Okay, then we have our summary of the unit 1 of the unit the unsinkable becomes the unthinkable. Okay, now here we have different vocabulary words, so we have to fill these blanks with the vocabulary words and we have to write the summary. Okay, on 14th April 1912, the Titanic struck an dash while sailing in the dash. It had a special dash and it was built so well that people thought it was dash. It set sail from dash place on its dash and dash on 12th April 1912, and it sank on dash. Many people were loaded into lifeboats, but there were not dash lifeboats for passengers and crew. Therefore, over dash people died, many from hypothermia because of the dash water. Even today, people remember the tragedy of dash. So we have different words, different numbers. The first one is 1500, 10,000, iceberg. We have design, we have England, 10th May, 15th April, cold enough, unsinkable, North Atlantic Ocean, the Titanic, and maiden voyage. Okay, now look at the first sentence. On 14th April 1912, the Titanic struck an iceberg while sailing in the dash. The Titanic struck an iceberg while it was sailing in the North Atlantic Ocean. The name of the ocean is North Atlantic Ocean, where the Titanic struck an iceberg and sank. It had a special dash. Okay, what will be the answer? What will be in the blank? It had a special design. So, due to this design, many of the people thought that this ship was unsinkable. Okay, and it was built so well that people thought it was unsinkable. It set sail from dash place on its dash on 12th April 1912. It means that it set sails from England on its maiden voyage on 12th April 1912, and it sank on 15th April. It means that on 15th April the Titanic struck an iceberg while sailing in the North Atlantic Ocean and it sank. Okay, many people were loaded into lifeboats, but there were not enough lifeboats for passenger and crew. Means that there were not enough lifeboats for passenger and crew. Therefore, over 1,500 people died, and many from hypothermia because of the cold water. Even today, people remember the tragedy of the Titanic. So, this is the summary of the unit. The unsinkable becomes the unthinkable. Okay, then we have our new vocabulary words. We have luxury, we have operating, we have hull, glorious, split, compartments, passenger, course, infamous, witness, humbled, and survivors. Okay, now we have to fill the blanks. The first one, thankfully, no one was in the dash room when the Titanic hit the iceberg. It means that there was no one in the operating room. In the operating room. 2. The day ship had a swimming pool, nice large rooms, and a squash court. The luxury ship had a swimming pool, nice large rooms, and a squash court. So these were the features, the luxury features of the court. Third one, the Dash criminal thought he would never get caught. He was Dash, however, when he was caught and put in prison. The infamous criminal thought he would never get caught. He was humbled, however, when he was caught and put in prison. Fourth one. On its first voyage, the ship split its hull on a rock and sank. Several people witnessed the accident from land, though, and sent boats out to rescue the passengers and crew. The survivors thanked their rescuers over and over again. Number 5. We got to see the Dash majestic sunrise. We got to see the glorious and majestic sunrise. We kept the dogs in separate compartments on the airplane so they wouldn't fight. Okay, the first dish of the meal was soup. The first course of the meal was soup. Okay, so these are the new vocabulary words. Now, at the end, there are your assignment. Your assignment is that you have to do question number 8, 9, and 10 from page 5. At the top of the page 5, we have quick questions. I have already solved 7 uh, questions out of 10, and you have to solve 8, 9, and 10. Means the first question is, how did many of the people die? Question number 9 is, who rescued the people in lifeboats? And question number 10 is, in which ocean did the Titanic sink? So you have to jot it down these questions on loose sheet, and you have to submit these to your school or to your teacher. If you have any queries, then you can ask from your teacher, or you can call to the office number of the school. So this is all in today's lecture.